i-counter kung tama ba o hindi yung auditor o liable ba talaga yung persons liable. Yun po yung procedure, kaya po meron talaga dun na directive to restitute yung amount kung hindi na i-appeal.
So, sinasabi po din natin na tama naman yung
Tama po.
salawas na sa result of illegal or improper disbursement. At nag-issue po kayo ng
Tama po.
Rest by case, Madam Chair.
Madam Vice President, do you wish to comment?
Yes, ma'am. With regard to the proposed bill on the impact assessment, I hope that it will be included that the representative Caso of ACT teachers party list, I heard her during the DSWD budget hearing, nagpapasalamat siya sa ayuda na binigay sa kanila ng DSWD. Sana naman masali din yan sa investigation kung saan napupunta yung pamimigay nila ng ayuda, because Representative Castro has a record in the NTF-LCAC as a supporter of CPP, NPA, and there.
Again, salamat. And again, the chair reminds all members and guests to keep our comments just on point. Let's just stick to the topic.
Pondo ng gobyerno ay dapat subjected to impact evaluation dahil tulad po ng sinabi sa briefing ng DBCC, inamin mismo po ng ating NEDA Secretary na talagang maraming pondo ng gobyerno ang nasasayang dahil wala tayong ginagawang impact evaluation para malaman kung saan ba talaga tamang ilagay ang ating mga pondo.
Salamat, Honorable Bonilla. Next interpret is Honorable Joel Chua.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, Madam Chair, halos lahat ng itatanong ko, naitanong na eh. But anyway, yung mga konti na lang po akong itatanong dito, sana po masagot po ng ating Vice President. Madam Vice President, pwede ko pong, di po ba naging mayor po kayo ng Davao for 6 years, tama po ba?
Madam Chair, I will forgo the opportunity to defend the OVP 2025 budget proposal by question and answer, and I will leave it to the House of Representatives to decide on the budget proposal. Madam Chair, may I request a 1-minute restroom break?
Yes, briefing suspended.
Well, I have the microphone. I just want to make a manifestation that you said that allocation includes utilization. If that is the case, everybody would be examining everybody's 2023, 2022, 2021 budget. And Madam Chair, I have been attending so many budget hearings. Nobody ever discusses something earlier than 2024.
Madam Chair, if I may, Madam Chair, I will not ask naman the confidential budget of the city of Davao.
Yes, I was about to say that.
Yeah.
Yes, your point of order is well taken, ma'am. We will not discuss the budget.
Yes, I will not, hindi ko po tatanungin po yun. Ang point ko lang po dito ay as Mayor of Davao, dahil alam naman po natin, medyo matagal po siyang naging alkalde, hindi po sa kanya bago itong confidential fund. And in fact, ito po ay kumbaga normal na po dahil lahat naman po ng alkalde meron naman pong confidential fund eh. Now, susunod ko pong tanong, Madam Chair, is napansin ko po dito sa liquidation report dated January 10, 2023. Meron po ditong nakapirma sa taas po ng Sara Z. Duterte, Vice President. Gusto ko pong tanungin ng ating Vice Presidente kung ito po ba ay kanyang pirma. Sa liquidation report po ng January 10, 2023, serial number 2022-12-152.
Madam Vice
Madam
President.
Chair, on the issue of confidential funds, we have received audit actions regarding the confidential funds of the Office of the Vice President. We have submitted our responses and we assure our full cooperation with the ongoing audit. Madam Chair, again, sinasabi ko na walang confidential funds sa 2025 budget proposal and all the questions are about confidential funds except for one which was about the recipient of OVP projects.
Honorable Joel, please proceed.
Well, totoo po yung sinasabi po ng ating Vice Presidente. Subalit, ngayon lamang po natin nakita to. At ngayon lamang po natin nakita kung ano po yung laman ng o kung paano po niya nagamit yung confidential fund. Kaya kung dati po, hindi naman natin siya matatanong dahil wala rin po tayong opportunity, dahil wala rin po tayong hawak ng mga dokumento. But it is only now, Madam Chair. Kaya nga po, tinatanong po natin para at least malaman din po natin at saka konektado rin po ito dahil at the end of the day, dito po natin makikita kung paano po siya gumamit ng pondo na binibigay po sa kanyang opisina. May I proceed now, Madam
Please
Chair?
proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Meron din po ditong naka-attach dated January 10, 2022 certification. Sa baba po dito, nakalagay po dito attested Sara Z. Duterte, Vice President, at sa taas po nun merong pumpirma. Do you confirm that this is your signature, Madam Vice President?
Madam Vice President.
Yes, Madam Chair. Precisely, dapat hindi ninyo yan nakikita kasi that confidential funds pertains to national security and hindi pa tapos yung audit process. But to answer the question, Madam Chair, on the issue of confidential funds, we have received audit actions regarding the we have submitted our responses and we assure our full cooperation with the ongoing and unfinished audit.
Honorable Joel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since hindi naman po niya sinasagot yung ating katanungan, I will just proceed. Meron din pong nakatouch dito na accomplishment report, utilization of confidential and intelligence fund, period covered December 21 to December 31, 2022, total amount 125 million. At sa baba po nito, may nakalagay pong approved by Sara Z. Duterte, Vice President. Again, Madam Chair, gusto ko pong tanungin ng ating Madam Vice President kung ito pong pirma na nandito sa ibabaw ay kanya po.
Madam Vice President.
Madam Chair, on the issue of confidential funds, we have received audit actions from COA regarding the confidential funds of the OVP. We have submitted our responses and we assure our full cooperation, the ongoing and unfinished audit.
Honorable Joel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, napansin ko lang po kasi sa lahat po ng kanyang mga sinubmit, personal, may nakalagay po sa taas na signature po ng ating Vice Presidente at wala pong mga countersign. So, ibig sabihin, wala po ditong nag-inspection bukod po sa kanya. Siya po yung nag-certify, siya rin po yung nag-attest, at siya rin po yung nag-approve. So, yun po yung aking punto po dito. Another thing, Madam Chair, gusto ko lang pong tanungin ng ating, kasi kaya ako nga po tinatanong kanina kung anong taon sana siyang naging alkalde ng Davao, kasi gusto ko pong tanungin sa kanya kung aware po ba siya sa Joint Circular number 2015-01 dated January 8, 2015.
Madam Vice President.
Madam Chair, on the issue of confidential funds, we have received audit actions regarding the confidential funds of the Office of the Vice President from the Commission on Audit. We have submitted our responses and we assure our full cooperation with the ongoing and unfinished audit.
And you have 30 seconds left.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, yung huling tanong ko, i-address ko na lamang po sa ating COA. Kanina po, nung tinanong po kayo ng ating ni Congresswoman Magsaysay, sinabi po niya, hindi tama yung paggamit ng pondo. Ano po, pwede po bang pakipaliwanag ninyo sa amin? At sinabi po ninyo, opo, pwede po bang pakipaliwanag po ninyo sa amin kung paano po ninyo nasabi na hindi tama yung paggamit ng pondo? Sa kuha po, hindi po kay Madam Vice President.
Ask Cumoliano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ang sagot ko po ay just a general effect po ng notice of disallowance kasi wala po akong personal knowledge dun sa confidential fund at hindi ko po nakita yung document nung sinadmit sa committee. Dahil iba po yung unit na nag-audit niyan.
So dun po sa hindi tamang
Last question.
last question po, yes. Dun po sa hindi tamang paggamit ng pondo, pwede rin po ba nating masabi na nagkaroon po ng diversion of fund o yung sinasabi po natin yung pondo hindi po nagamit dun po sa talagang dapat siya gamitin?
Ask Cumoliano.
Apo, pag ang tanong po tungkol dun sa audit ng confidential fund, hindi ko po pwedeng sagutin kasi hindi po ako yung nag-audit nun. Pero kung ang tanong niyo ay yung
General po yung tanong ko.
notice of disallowance, meron pong ganun.
So, possible po na may diversion of fund.
Meron pong ground na ang irregular, ibig sabihin po hindi sumunod sa panuntunan ng pwede pong excessive, hindi naman kailangan bumili ng maraming stocks na sira lang, medicine na expired lang. Pwede pong unconscionable, ibig sabihin masyadong shocking na doon sa senses. Parang kung ang laptop mo is 50,000, bumili ka ng laptop na 500,000, baka naman unconscionable na po yun.
So, ang tanong ko lang po kung...
So, yes, this last question.
So, yung tanong ko lang po kung possible po na mayroong diversion of...
Meron pong under
Yes or no lang po?
the revised penal code, merong technical malversation.
Thank you po.
Salamat. Next interpellate is Honorable Joyville Luistro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we all agree, from the level of the President down to barangay captain, public office is a public trust. In other words, public officers and employees must, at all times, be accountable to the people. In line with this, Madam Chair, with all due respect, I wish to invite the attention of the committee to the
Check out ko na to.
Uy, pare, kamusta?
Uy, free shipping.
Balita ko, araw-araw na free shipping, ah.
Totoo ba?
Ganda dyan. No minimum spend, tol. Free shipping? Araw-arawin mo.
Check out na. Ay!
Download shopping now. Inuutusan isubmit ang audit report. Hindi pa nga tapos. With all due respect, Madam Chair, may I request the resource speaker to comment on her intention about her statement.
Madam Vice President.
Madam Chair, again, question is not related to the 2025 Office of the Vice President budget proposal. On the issue of confidential funds, we have received audit actions regarding the confidential funds of the OVP. We have submitted our responses and we assure our full cooperation with the ongoing audit.
Honorable Luistro.
Madam Chair, In other words, this representation wished to be clarified when the Vice President made the statement. Intensyon ba ng ating Vice Presidente na ibahagi o hindi ibahagi sa publiko ang resulta ng nilalaman ng audit report patungkol sa kontrobersyal na 125 million na confidential fund. Nonetheless, Madam Chair, I understand that the Vice President already expressed her intention not to answer this question. Thus, please allow this representation to shift to the COA. May I request the COA to give his comment to this statement of the Vice President.
Ask from Juliano.
Madam Chair, pwede pong pakiulit po yung question.
Kung i-repeat the question, hindi po natin isasama sa yung 5 minutes.
During the press interview of the Vice President in the Senate on August 22, 2024, she made the remarks, saan naman kayo nakakita? Constitutional body, inuutusan to submit fraud audit. Hindi pa nga tapos. We are requesting the COA to make their comment on this.
Madam Chair, ang sagot ko po siguro in relation dun sa subpoena kasi yung rationale po no compliance namin sa subpoena quote ko lang po yung second page po first sentence noong subpoena. This subpoena due sa STECOM is being issued in accordance with the oversight function of the House of Representatives. This order is likewise based on Section 3 of COA Circular 2013-006 dated September 2013. Ang compliance po ng COA ay dahil po ito ay in-issue po ng chairperson ng Committee on Appropriations. And under yung pong Congress, yung House of Representatives, is a body authorized by law to issue subpoena. And we cannot interpret otherwise. There is a presumption of regularity and validity do sa subpoena. We cannot unilaterally challenge the validity of the subpoena unless the court will interpret that pwede po or hindi pwede. Yun po yung aming ko. Kaya kami po in-entrust po namin sa dun sa House of Representatives, dun sa wisdom po ng leadership, yung compliance sa documents. At ito rin yung sinasabi dun sa aming guidelines na pag may subpoena po, we have to comply.
Honorable Ministro.
In relation to your compliance with the subpoena, did you recall having received any feedback from the Office of the Vice President pertaining to the same?
Actually po, meron pong sulat ang Office of the Vice President sa aming chairman na yun nga po, may mga legal issues po na binabanggit at ito po yung na-consider na rin po ng Office of the Chairperson noong nag-comply sa subpoena do sa STECOM.
Madam Chair, with that manifestation of the COA, may I request that the committee be provided with a copy of the letter? And having said so, Madam Chair, may I request for a suspension of the briefing?
Meeting suspended.
Gamaliel A. Cordoba, Chairperson, Commission on Audit, Quezon City. This is dated August 21, 2024. Madam Chair, this is composed of 4 pages. And I lament that I do not have material time to go over this letter by the letters. Nonetheless, I wish to manifest that the substance of this letter is an opposition to the subpoena that was issued by Congress. If I may read, we are of the position that the subject subpoena should not be complied for the following reasons. If I may continue, Madam Chair,
Yes, please proceed.
among the issues that were raised, one is the violation of the principle of separation of power. Second is violation to due process. And third is the confidential nature of the fund. Madam Chair, I wish to manifest my comment to the issues that were raised in this letter. First, the principle of separation of power is not absolute. This is subject to exception. As a matter of fact, we call it the system of check and balances. And that is the very reason why the Congress has the oversight power, and that is to make sure that the laws enacted, including the appropriation laws, and to be specific, the GAA 2022, the source of the confidential fund, is properly implemented. If I may share, one of the landmark cases about oversight power is the Abacada Guro party list. There are 3 consequences of oversight power. One is congressional scrutiny. 2 is congressional investigation. And 3 is legislative supervision. With all due respect, by congressional scrutiny, without necessarily conducting an inquiry in aid of legislation, the Congress may request information and report from other branches of the government. Similarly, it can recommend and pass resolution for consideration of the agency involved. Madam Chair, with respect to the violation of due process, I humbly believe that we are all witnesses in today's hearing. We are in fact catering the right to due process. A number of the esteemed members of the House propounded questions already, but our Vice President maintained his position not to address the question concerning confidential fund. But speaking about due process, I humbly submit that notice was given. This is a budget briefing, and ample opportunity to explain was even accorded. It is my humble submission, Madam Chair, that contrary to the letter, we did not violate due process. As a matter of fact, we catered due process. Finally, Madam Chair, they raised the confidential nature of the fund. Ito po'y tanong na nais kong iwanan sa mga kapwa natin Pilipino. Granting that the nature of the fund is confidential and recognizing Memorandum Circular Number 15, 2023, relating to the privileged communication. Ang tanong po, Madam Chair, when there is notice of disallowance na nagsasabing ang 72 million out of 125 million na confidential fund ay hindi nagamit ng naaayon sa Joint Circular number 15-01. And as a matter of fact, ipinababalik ng COA sa pamahalaan. Ang tanong, confidential fund pa po ba ang tawag dito? Privileged communication pa din po ba ang saklaw nito? Oo po, at tatahimik na lang po ba ang Kongreso? I wish to share the case of Chavez versus Public Estates Authority. It's no argument, ang pera ng gobyerno ay pera ng taong bayan. Unless the citizens have proper information, we cannot fulfill the constitutional mandate that public office is a public trust. I submit, Madam Chair.
Madam Vice President, do you care to comment?
Yes, Madam Chair, nasabi ko ang gist lang na nakuha ko na nasabi kanina ni Representative Luis Tro, yes, is that wala siyang time na isa-isahin per letter yung letter namin sa Commission on Audit on why the requested documents should not be released to Congress. Pero nakahanda na yung mga sagot niya sa lahat ng arguments namin sa national security, sa due process, and sa separation of powers. Is this part ba of what you said earlier, Representative Kimbo, let's stick to the plan? Yun yung narinig ko sa iyo kanina na hindi mo in-accommodate yung point of order na question. And to answer, the Office of the Vice President, on the issue of confidential funds, we have received audit actions regarding confidential funds of the OVP. We have submitted our responses and we assure our full cooperation with the ongoing and unfinished audit. We are cooperating and answering all the questions in the proper venue that is inside the Commission on Audit, not in the budget hearing for the 2025 proposal of the OVP budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Note all your comments. I do not recall seeing the phrase "stick to the plan," Madam Vice President, and so we do note your comments, and also I believe your compliment of the brilliance of the Honorable Luis Cho. So
Madam
that's
Chair?
to, yes.
Madam Chair, may I request that the Secretariat read your stick to the plan line?
As I said, Madam Vice President, pasensya na po, we don't have the right to make requests at this point in time. So we proceed to our next member, the Honorable Ramon Gutierrez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon po sa ating lahat. And to begin, Madam Chair, actually may line of questioning po tayo, but a lot of it has been asked by our colleagues. And obviously, the biggest issue for us here would be yung issues relating to confidential funds. But before that, I'd like to preface my questioning po kasi there were quite a number of point of orders regarding the scope of our budget hearing. And though, of course, we defer to the senior lawyers and their experience, it is my opinion that we are well within the bounds of our discussion for 3 points that I would like to share just for the consideration of the body. First, as mentioned by Congressman Manuel, under our rules, under Rule 162, we have rulings as precedent. Under Rule 163, we have supplementary rules regarding our parliamentary practices. So it's very clear po that by tradition, we really follow po, no, kung ano po yung nangyari sa previous hearings, we could still pursue the same. And very much, if I recall, in other proceedings, in other hearings for the budget, we do discuss years going back. And in fact, we can actually we can draw comparison with utilization and allocations of previous administrations, because precisely this is part of our oversight function and part in support of our duty in legislating for the General Appropriations Act. Second, Mr. Chair, I'd like to point out also that part of the President's budget in the NEP, if we take a look, that there is a portion on proposed budget, there is a portion on current budget, and there's a portion on actual. So as a matter of fact, and I believe it was actually DS Ungab who taught me this when we had our workshop, when we started for the first termers here. And that actually, while we are discussing the budget of 2025, verily part of the NEP of the actual is actually discussing 2022. And very much as precisely mentioned by Congresswoman Kimbo, sometimes the validity of appropriations can go on for 2 years, and that is why exactly we can really look into that. And third, I think most important in relation to the issue of the confidential funds is the question of yung sa COA po, yung itong notice of disallowance and audit report which we have received by virtue of subpoena duces tecum. 2024 po yung date nito. So I think it would have been impossible for us to tackle these matters in the previous deliberations. And I think rather than, although the proposal is noted that we have different committees to hear these kinds of things, given the nature that it is not yet final, I think the hearing before the budget would be most appropriate to consider the same. So with that said, Madam Chair, I would like to proceed with my questioning. And I would be addressing this question to the Honorable Vice President. Madam Chair, maybe ask through you, is the Honorable Vice President aware of the audit observation memorandums covering 3 different disbursements of confidential funds?
Madam Vice President.
On the issue of audit actions regarding confidential funds of the OVP, we have submitted our responses and we assure the public of our full cooperation with the ongoing and unfinished audit.
Madam Chair, is the Honorable Vice President aware that for the first audit observation memorandum regarding the 2 disbursements of confidential fund, there were 2 issues raised by the COA?
Madam Vice President.
Madam Chair, on the issue of confidential funds, we have received audit actions from the COA regarding the confidential funds of the OVP. We have submitted our responses and we assure the public our full cooperation with the ongoing and unfinished audit.
Thank you for the response, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, is the Honorable Vice President aware that one issue raised by the COA was the lack of documentary evidence presented?
Madam Vice President.
Madam Chair, on the issue of confidential funds, we have received audit actions from the COA regarding the confidential funds of the Office of the Vice President. We have submitted our responses and we assure the public of our full cooperation with the ongoing audit.
Madam Chair, thank you for the response. Would the Honorable Vice President be aware that another issue raised by the audit observation memorandum was the misappropriation categories? Because, Madam Chair, in the audit observation memorandum, there was a distinguishment that the use of confidential funds shall be limited to certain categories of expenses, and that verily the point of the AOM was that there were findings that some of the categories included in the AOM were not subject or scope of confidential funds.
Madam Vice President.
On the issue of confidential funds, we have received audit actions from COA regarding confidential funds of the Office of the Vice President. We have submitted our responses and we assure our full cooperation with the ongoing and unfinished audit.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'd move on to the next question. Regarding these AOMs, it seems to be that for COA, based on experience, masyadong matagal na po ito. May we ask, Madam Chair, if there is any delays of sorts on the part of the Office of the Vice President in terms of responding to these AOMs and notice of disallowance?
Madam Vice President.
Madam Chair, I think that question is best asked to the Commission on Audit. Why will you ask me that? Sinabi na nga niya, itatanong sa Commission on Audit eh.
Madam Chair, most respectfully, there was a response on the part of the Office of the Vice President, and I would just assume that the Vice President is aware of the timing of their response to any audit actions that she has repeatedly mentioned, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, that is a question for the Commission on Audit, not for the Office of the Vice President.
Madam Chair, well, I will rephrase and indulge the good honorable Vice President. May I ask, Madam Chair, COA, regarding the proceedings po ng kanilang audit observation memorandum. May we know, Madam Chair, through the member of COA, the date on which the AOM was submitted and the date on which the response was made?
Ms. Comoliano?
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I don't have the documents and I'm not privy to the audit of the Intelligence and Confidential Fund because it is within the Intelligence and Confidential Fund Audit Unit.
Madam Chair, most respectfully, may we know the position of our member from COA here?
Madam Chair, I am an Assistant Commissioner of COA. I'm the senior, the head of the Assistant Commissioners.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just clarifying. So, hindi po siya palagaling sa ICAUF po, no? So, I suppose we'll have to make do with that answer for now. A lot of my questions were supposed to bank on that. Madam Chair, I'll move on to the next po siguro. Based on the circular, the compliance of liquidation of cash should be done within within year end. And Madam Chair, it could be noted that the submission of the liquidation for the first confidential fund issued for 2022 was actually done in January 10, 2023. I will not address this to the Honorable Vice President, as she has pointed out. I will address this question to the COA. Madam Chair, is that correct that part of the circular dictates that liquidation of cash advances regarding confidential funds should be done within year end?
Ms. Comoliano?
Yes, there is requirement that all cash advances should be liquidated at year end.
Madam Chair, notwithstanding that the scope of covered period would be, for example, in the case of 2022, it was December 21 to December 31. Would that still require that liquidation be done at year end?
Ms. Comoliano?
If the disbursement is not yet generally all unliquidated